Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter, and I got a new camera. I'm so excited because I told you about my crashing drop. Problem that I had with my other camera. Apparently they don't like to be dropped, and I thought maybe I'll take it apart, and apparently I don't know what the inside of a camcorder is supposed to look like, so I just decided to go and get another one. I did some research and I decided that I wanted the Samsung F90. I was checking out camcorders online. This one looked really good. It was fairly new, couldn't find any reviews for it, and then it showed up in the Best Buy sale flyer for $150, and there were reviews on their site, and I thought they were pretty decent, and I found some tutorials on YouTube with people actually using this camera. That's part of the reason I'm doing this video, so if you're interested in this camera, you can see what it looks like when it films. And I like it because it's got a record pause feature, which will be handy when I'm doing a step-by-step tutorial and I need to film things separately. So actually I'm going to use that record pause feature right now because I'm going to show you how to do some watercolor washes today, and also kill two birds with one stone and try out this camera while I'm at it. So I'm going to push the record pause button. Oh, it's right here. Now that's slick. Look at this. We're looking at my paper now. I've moved the camera and oh, I'm liking this. I really just got home with it very shortly. I got home with this camera very shortly ago, and I'm already able to use it. So what I'm going to do is actually start with a wet into wet wash, and to do that you simply wet your paper with water. I'm using a paintbrush. You could use like a spray bottle, or a really big paintbrush is usually what I would use, but I'm got kind of a small like 3x5 area here, so I'm just using this small round brush. Alright, so I've got the paper wet so it's shiny. If I tip that, you can see that it's a little bit shiny in the light. You see that? Alright, oops, I bumped my tripod. And then I'm simply going to pick up some color and I'm going to add it, and you can see how when I add the color it kind of blends around. I can make it go dark to light, or I can have it fairly even. This is my favorite type of wash, really, because look at that, it already looks like a sky. I can use a tissue. Let me grab a tissue over here. So prepared. So prepared. I could grab a tissue and I could do a little lifting and make clouds in a sky with this type of wash. It's very forgiving, and you'll find that this is very, very useful. And if you make a mistake, you can brush over it with water. So if I've got a tissue here, I can just crinkle it up and I can make some little puffy clouds. See? Easy as pie. So the next kind of wash I want to show you is called a controlled wash, and what you want to do is first make a puddle on your palette of the color you want to use. You need to make a palette puddle. So I'm going to mix up a bunch of alizarin crimson here. You need to make sure you have enough before you begin, because if you don't, you're going to end up with a streaky wash. This isn't a really big area, so I don't have to have too much. Make sure I have enough, though. It's always better to have a little too much than not enough, because you can't stop. You're not going to have time to stop and remix while you're working. Okay, so when you're doing a controlled wash, you want to make sure you have your paper on a board or something where you can tip it. I've just got this right on the pad of paper that it came in. And so what I'm going to do is make a bead of color at the top of this. So I'm just going straight across with my brush, making a rather thin line, and then I'm just going to keep loading that wet area, that bead I've just made. I'm going to keep adding until I can get as much color as it will hold without dripping. Now, hopefully, if this camera's worth its salt, it will, you'll be able to see this pretty good. I'll bring it up a little bit, hopefully without... Actually, you know what? I can zoom right in. Why don't I try zooming in? I'm just kind of also learning how to use this camera here while I'm working. Okay, so you can see I've got a nice bead of color there. So I've got that as full as it can be. Now I'm kind of reaching around and working upside down, so please excuse me if I get my hand in the way. Then you're just going to kind of paint in horizontal strokes, and notice how I'm keeping that bead of color at the bottom. And it gives us a nice uniform wash. So then when you start to run out of color, before you run out of color, you want to add more color to the bead. Okay, see I've got that bead there, so I'm lifting up more color off my palette and I'm filling up that bead. And then I'm going in with those strokes. I'm just basically letting gravity help this color along my paper, and also since I'm only working on the wet edge, it's not giving me any backwash. Now if I was too slow and I left that I left the paper just sitting like that, and I laid it down, it would get a big backwash. And sometimes it's what you want. If you were like, I don't know, maybe doing like clouds or something, you might like that effect. But generally for average painting, if you want a flat wash of color, this is what you would do, and to avoid getting the backwash. So if I left it like that, I'd get a big, what's called a bloom backwash. But to avoid that, I get my tissue and I dry my brush off, and then I pick up that color and just keep blotting it on my tissue. Because you don't want to go in there, if you dab it, you might lift off color where you don't want it if you dab it with the tissue. So I'm just picking up, I'm drinking up the color with my brush. See that? I apologize if this video is a little rough, because this is the first time I'm using this camera. And there we go, that is a controlled wash. I might just pull a little bit more on there just to make sure that I don't have any leftover color. So you get a nice nice flat version there. Let me zoom out here. Oh, zooming. My old camera hasn't been able to zoom since it took its tumble. Alright, so there, the two different types of washes. Now I got one more type I want to show you. And actually, I am going to grab a bigger brush for this. I'm so prepared. You can hear me rummaging. Let's see how good the mics are. Can you hear me rummaging in the drawers for the other brushes? So this is called the open drip technique, and you basically just wet an area that you want to have a bunch of color in. And then you simply go in and add big drips of color. And then you just let them blend out however they want. They mix and mingle. You don't mix any of your color beforehand. You let it mix on the paper. And depending on how wet your paper is and how smooth it is and how much sizing it has, you get some really, really cool effects. It's really fun. I like to do this for backgrounds. And this is going to stay wet for quite a while, so you have to be careful not to tip it, because it's going to go everywhere if you tip it. And that's just the open drip. A lot of times I'll use that on a flower petal. I will just like wet one petal and drip in the colors and let them blend, and then move on to another petal that doesn't touch that, and that's how I would do that. So there you got 3 different types of washes, which are great for if you're painting or even if you're just trying to add a background to a card. Alright, so I'm going to show you a way to use a wash with a stamped image. The first way, I'm going to show you how to use the wet into wet wash with a stamped image. So this first way is you would just wet the background only and not your focal image, because watercolor is very fluid and it's only going to travel where the paper is wet. If it has a choice between wet and dry paper, it's going to take the path of least resistance and it's going to travel on the wet paper, and it's going to leave the dry paper alone. Now I'd take a little more time if I wasn't shooting a video, but I want to get this done fairly quickly so that I can see how this looks on YouTube. I'm very curious to see how my new purchase is going to hold up. Alright, so then if I want to put, say, like a blue background in here for a sky, I can do that very easily, because all I have to do is kind of paint it in there gently, and the water is going to make the paint go where it needs to go. I'm going with a smaller brush than that. I got a big brush hair in there. I need to fish that out of there. When you do get a brush hair, just see if you can kind of ease out of the way with your paintbrush, and then you can, I think that's dog hair actually. Looks awfully like my golden retriever's hair there. And then, you know, you can refine, bring it in a little bit closer. So there you have a very easy background for a stamped image. I know someone's going to ask, I'd stamp this with Stampin' Up! Basic Black because it's waterproof. And that's my favorite waterproof ink. I know a lot of people don't like that particular ink. I'm not a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator or anything, but I love their Basic Black for watercoloring because it's subtle. It's not a super, super black. It's a very subtle black. So there, that's a nice wet into wet wash background. Now, I'm going to show you how to do a controlled wash on the butterfly to like color in the butterfly. Now, if I did that right now to this butterfly with the background wet, the color would bleed everywhere because it would go where the water is. But since, so I stamped it twice so I could show you down here. And I'm also going to show you how to change colors. So first, I'm going to want to do orange and I'm going to want to do yellow on the butterfly. So I'm making a puddle of each. Because remember, when we do a controlled wash, we need to have all of our color mixed up beforehand. And I'm going to have some yellow. I'm going to get that all mixed up beforehand as well. A little bit of more water in there. Mix that up. Alright. Now I'm going to start with one color and just grade it down to the other color. Just for no particular reason really, just to show you how to do it, I guess. I'll start with the yellow. And this is kind of an odd shape, so I think I'll do one wing at a time. I'm just starting my bead here, and it's a smaller space so I don't have to be as careful as I was with the big rectangle. But I'm just going to work that bead down. Now when I start to get to the area where I want to switch colors, I'm going to pick up some of the other color and just drop it into the bead and start working it down quickly. And I think I'm going to have enough color on this bead to finish the whole thing. Now sometimes you can't go exactly in horizontal strokes because the shape that you're coloring is not horizontal. I'm drinking up the extra color there. Get a really nice smooth wash there. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I can, because my camera zooms. Oh, it's the little things in life that are so exciting, isn't it? Again, we'll start with our yellow. My open drip wash over here in the other corner of the paper is going a little crazy. Okay, I've loaded up that bead. I'm going to pull it across, back and forth. We're still in frame. We're doing good. I'm really liking this camera, I must say. You have to let me know what you think, if you notice any difference whatsoever, or if it's fabulous or whatever. I think I'm going to start this orange here in this bead. A little bit higher than the other one. Start pulling down the color. Just make sure you don't leave any puddles, because that will turn into a bloom or a backwash. Oh, and actually that finished up pretty perfectly. Okay, and try not to go back, and I know I just did, but try not to go back in and mess with it after you've done it. You can kind of see like a bloom. I was showing you right there where I'm pointing with my brush. That's an example of a bloom or backwash, those little kind of ruffly edges. You can see it right there where I'm pointing. And it can have some really cool, it has some really cool artistic effects, and you, like for art journaling and whatnot, look really cool. But when you don't want them in your background, you want to know how to avoid them. So that's it for me. I just wanted to do a quick little video to try out my new camera and also show you how to do a watercolor wash, because it was the monthly technique at Oriental Stamp Art for the month of April. I'm really on the ball. What is this, the 30th of April, and I'm just getting around to doing this. So this is for all the procrastinators out there, I guess, in my stamping group. So there you have it, watercolor wash, my new camera, which is a Samsung F90 for those of you who are looking to get one. I want to thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.